I would agree with you that people do make mistakes, but I draw a distinction between mistakes and deception, which I view as a whole other category of problems. On June 11th of 2015, you wrote a handwritten note to Sally Jewell, the Secretary of the Department of Interior. It was 4 sentences long, barely 2 paragraphs. Do you stand by that? Was there anything wrong or deceptive about that handwritten note that you gave the Secretary?
So I wrote the note to let her know that I had published this book. It was, I think, her first awareness of the book. I said in that there were no ethics issues because I had written it on my own time. I had asked Eastern National, or I said in the note that Eastern National had requested it of me, which is Eastern National does publish a lot of books for the National Park Service, and that all benefits are going to the National Park Foundation. When I wrote that note, I thought I was following the ethics rules, with the exception that I had not asked permission to produce the book.
Why didn't you ask permission?
I felt that the book would be subject to extensive review and probably would not get published in the Centennial.
So you made a conscious decision to not ask ethics because you thought that you wouldn't get the result that you ultimately wanted. So did Eastern National request that you write the book, or did you request of Eastern National that you write the book?
The facts of the case are that I asked Eastern National if they were interested in the book, and Eastern National responded to say, let me ask you to write the book.
And they had a multi-million-dollar contract with the Park Service, correct?
No, they have no contract with the National Park Service. They are a cooperating association.
Okay, well, the cooperation results in millions of dollars of business. Here's my problem with what you wrote. It was not true. It was deceptive. And it was intended to make the appearance to the Secretary of the Interior that there was no ethical problem and that you were doing this at the request of Eastern National, neither of which were true, correct?
I think that it was incorrect.
Why should the Secretary trust you? Why should we trust you?
Because I have served as a public servant for 40 years. In leadership roles for 25 years with an impeccable record of service to the American people.
I don't know that I take issue with the idea that it's impeccable. When you give a handwritten note to the Secretary of Interior deceiving her on 2 key points.
And I apologized profusely.
No, what you said actually when you were confronted by the Inspector General, Ms. Kendall, I want you to weigh into this. With this record, you have this, was it a transcription or what was this interview with the director? We asked Jarvis whether looking back he would have done anything differently, and he said, and then it's quoted here, was that because it was transcribed or was that
I believe we
a recording?
transcribed that through a recording.
Mr. Jarvis, when you were asked about this by the Inspector General, this is what you said, and I'm going to quote, would I have done the same thing? Probably. I think I knew going into this there was a certain amount of risk. I've never been afraid of risk. I've gotten my ass in trouble many, many, many times by the Park Service by not necessarily getting permission. I've always pushed the envelope. And then you go on from there. That is your quote, correct?
That is my quote.
And now you're apologizing because we're essentially having a public hearing.
No, I apologized a long time ago, long before this hearing. And I apologized directly to the Secretary and to the leadership of the National Park Service. And that was a mistake, and I fully own it.
And you lied to her, you deceived her, and I think it's wholly inappropriate. And now we look at the situation that's happening in Cape Canaveral, or the Canaveral National Seashore. This Chief Ranger, this is a fairly small park in the big scheme of things, right? It has 50 or so employees, is that about right?
It's a small park. I don't know what the staffing size is.
So, Ranger Correa, how do you pronounce his name?
Correa.
Correa. 3 documented cases of sexual harassment, procurement problems, conduct unbecoming, 3 of the 4 IG reports have been highlighting this, and your office, the National Park Service, is handing out awards, safety awards. How does somebody who's getting, on the one hand, reprimands and highlights and sexual harassment problems, again, there's only 50 people, and they got 3 documented sexual harassment issues. You go to the superintendent had allegations of reprisal that were found by the Merit Systems Protection Board and resulted in a settlement. You had to go into a settlement with the National Park Service. Those were, and the person's still on the job.
His commission has been removed, but he is still he's still a federal employee, but his responsibilities have been removed.
This becomes more than just an isolated incident where somebody makes a mistake. Ms. Kendall, you've been looking at this. Give us a perspective first, if you would, on the note that was written by Director Jarvis to the Secretary, and then I want to ask you about Canaveral.
I would say that the note was...
Sorry, move the microphone up a little tighter there.
Sure.
Just pull it up. There you go.
I would say that the note was not accurate, and I agree with your characterization that it was deceptive. Your other question was?
How severe is the situation at Canaveral? How often do you have to go back and write 3 reports on the same topic?
I would hope we would never have to write another report on any of those topics at that park again.
Has it been resolved?
Not to my knowledge.
My time has expired. Let me go to the ranking member, Mr. Cummings.